Dr. Fatih Birol, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you.
Can you describe the scale of the current crisis?
I would say the world is facing the greatest global energy security threat in the history. So in the past, we had several crises. For example, in 1970s, we had 1973 and 1979. And in each of them, the world has lost 5 million barrels per day of oil, altogether 10 million, if you put all of them together. And as one may recall, this petrol crisis, oil crisis, led to major recession in the global economy. And this time, as it stands now, the amount of oil we lost is 11 million barrels per day. So more than 2 oil crises in the past put together. This is the biggest threat to energy security up to now in the history.
Now, you've just come from meeting Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister. Did you urge him to bring forward measures to lower fuel demand in Australia?
Now, I discussed with Mr. Prime Minister the efforts that the International Energy Agency has been carrying out, such as we release 400 million barrels of oil to the markets to comfort the markets, which ended up bringing the prices $18 down. In addition to that, we have provided a menu of 10 demand-side measures for saving oil in a hurry, if I may say so. It's up to governments to pick up which one is good for their economies, for their citizens. And I discussed in depth with Mr. Prime Minister. And I was reassured the preparations that his government is doing now in terms of the fuel supply security. And this was a good news for me.
6 cargoes of fuel have been cancelled coming from Asia. Can Australia replace all of that fuel from other countries?
Yeah. Of course, it is not a good news that 6 of them had to turn back, but I know that more than 70 cargoes are on their way to bring fuel to Australia. And this is not I would say, the end of the world that 6 of them went back. The issue is beyond Australia, when we are going to see the Strait of Hormuz is going to be opened. The single most important solution is opening up the Strait of Hormuz.
Now, you have described how enormous this current crisis is, but we are in a situation where both the United States and Iran are threatening escalation. What could be the consequences if we see further escalation and the Strait of Hormuz remains closed?
If the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, the implications for the global economy will be even more serious than it is now. And I would think that the global economy could be seriously damaged. Here, of course, especially the countries in Asia, especially developing countries in Asia, would be hurt the most.
Is it your view that fuel rationing is inevitable in Australia?
I wouldn't say so. If the Strait of Hormuz is opened, we may see that slowly but surely we go back to normality. And I think the Australian government is taking all the measures necessary in order to not to go to rationing at this stage.
What can Australia do to exert pressure on countries in Asia? They've signed a deal with Singapore today, but does Australia have leverage that it can legitimately use on Asian countries to ensure their cargoes continue to be loaded for Australia?
Australia is one of the cornerstones of the regional and global energy markets in terms of the LNG, in terms of coal, in terms of the minerals. And I am sure that this good trade relationship between the countries, Australia and other countries, will play a role that the countries will consider Australia's request carefully.
carefully, but should they be using that fact as a form of leverage against those supplier countries in Asia?
It's a topic that I would leave to the heads of states of the countries, but good relationship in terms of trade, in my view, would imply having good be next to each other in the good times and also not in the good times.
I want to ask you a question about tax. Obviously, Australia is one of the world's largest exporters of LNG. Companies here will make a lot of money with a much higher LNG price. There has been debate here about raising tax on gas companies to provide extra revenue, to maybe offer some support to households. Does the IEA support the idea of raising taxes in a moment of crisis like this?
I think when I talk with the oil and gas companies around the world, the CEOs of those companies, they tell me that they are ready to support the efforts of the governments to address this crisis, the unique crisis that we are facing. And I know that none of the company leaders I talk up to now, the executives, want to be seen greedy. But at the same time, one of the major assets of Australia is being a reliable and predictable country in terms of having the investors here investing in gas, minerals, and others. I would be very careful not to take steps in order to cast a shadow on this predictability and the reliability for the investors for natural gas and others.
At the same time, you say that it's important that the citizens of a country get a fair share. Do you think the citizens of Australia get a fair share from gas tax?
I really hope so, because Australia is a country, lots of resources, and the real owners of these resources are the citizens of this very country. And I very much hope and expect that the citizens get the fair share for the richness of this country in terms of their resource endowments and their exports and the resulting revenues.
You are one of the most experienced energy economists in the world, so I'll ask you that question again more bluntly. Do Australians get a fair share of gas tax or not?
I really hope so, because these resources belong to Australian citizens, Australian population, and those the export revenues, I hope, will help the Australian citizens to make their lives better and prosperous.
Should Australia use this crisis to speed up its energy transition in the view of the IEA?
Very much so. I believe Australia is a country which has a lot of resources, in terms of natural gas, in terms of uranium, in terms of copper and the others, is a very good candidate and for benefiting, being a trustworthy, reliable country from this crisis and emerge as one of the winners. But to do so, country has to make sure that this opportunity is used in the best way. And I believe when I talk with Mr. Prime Minister and my Minister and the other members of the cabinet, I believe they are all aware what an incredible opportunity Australia has now after this crisis, emerging as a reliable, trustworthy energy exporter in the world.
Dr. Fatih Birol, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.